I'm Dudu. In our last session analyzing AntDesign's design tokens, you probably realized that blindly following standard guidelines isn't what matters most. Instead, the real key is smartly compromising and customizing them to fit your own production environment. Now, with this practical perspective in mind, shall we move on and analyze how other companies handle it? While AntDesign served as a clean, intuitive textbook that's easy for practitioners to follow at the component level, the next design system we're about to face is on a whole different scale. It's a massive platform that forms the foundation for countless products around the globe, Google's Material Design. Let's look at how a global tech giant integrates and weaponizes the concept of design tokens within their ecosystem, and analyze Material Design's design tokens. Now, just like before, let's start by opening up Material Design's Figma Variables to map out its structure. When a platform's philosophy and design goals change, its design token architecture takes on a completely different shape. Let's find out how Google Material Design's token structure differs from the standard hierarchy we learned earlier, and see how they uniquely built it in their own way. When you open Google Material Design 3's official Figma variable system, you'll see that the data is managed across 4 separate, independent collections. Let's take a look at each of these 4 collections one by one to see exactly what values they hold. First is the M3 collection, which carries the heaviest weight. This is the repository for colors, and if we break down the data closely, we can uncover Material Design's unique characteristics. Unlike the standard design token systems we learned earlier, which reference other sub-values, this collection lays out all the color chips corresponding to the raw ingredients of each theme as pure raw values. Countless color themes like pink, red, and orange, along with light and dark modes, are expanded horizontally. As a result, this single collection alone makes the Figma file's data capacity quite heavy. In the typography area, the raw ingredients and the collection that references them are completely separated. First, basic properties like typeface names or font weights are declared as raw ingredients in the font theme collection. Then, the typescale collection, which defines the actual UI hierarchy, references these values defined in the font theme through variable links. In short, you can think of it as a structure where the hierarchical system borrows the necessary values from the raw material warehouse. Last is the shape collection, which handles form and appearance. You can think of this as a raw material repository that simply gathers corner rounding values. It manages step-by-step values ranging from extra small to full rounding as independent tokens. It features a highly intuitive structure, mapping directly to the necessary components without any complex reference hierarchies. Here, we can uncover a very interesting characteristic of Material Design structure. The standard design token approach we learned earlier follows a step-by-step hierarchy, moving from raw materials to aliases, and finally to component tokens. However, the actual M3 design system boldly omitted this component token layer. Instead, it uses a structure that maps directly from the design tokens straight to the actual UI component values. This can be seen as Google's practical choice to reduce structural complexity and allow practitioners to apply tokens much faster and more intuitively when building components. In essence, they stripped away unnecessary layers to maximize productivity. So, why did Google choose this brute force approach of listing out every single color theme, even if it meant cutting down these steps? We'll unlock that secret in the next chapter. Material design requires finely controlling opacity to express various interface states. Given Figma's technical limitations, where it's impossible to bind opacity onto a reference value, how exactly did Google split and structure its modes to cope? Let's jump right in and see how Material Design applies its modes to achieve detailed theme segmentation and handle opacity reflections. One of the biggest features of Material Design 3 is its dynamic color system. where colors change organically to match the user's preference or brand. To support this colorful and diverse environment, Google broke down dozens of color themes, such as pink, red, orange, and blue, into highly granular modes right inside the Figma variable table. In other words, they structured the system by pushing the entire horizontal scalability of their themes into this single color collection called M3 as separate modes. If we look deeper into the internal groups of this massive color collection, we can see that their roles are divided into two distinct characteristics. The first is the Schemes group, which forms the basic backbone of the UI using 100% opaque colors that have no transparency at all. And the second is the State Layers group. This is a dedicated repository holding only the design tokens that combine subtle alpha values or transparency to express interaction states of components, such as hover or pressed. So, why did Google divide these two groups and apply every single value manually like this? It is due to a critical technical limitation of the Figma variable system. Currently, Figma does not support a feature that allows you to reference a specific token and then control only its opacity on top of that. Since the tool cannot compute transparency on its own, Google had to take a brute force approach. To implement the semi-transparent effects of the state layers, the very core of their design system, they physically calculated and plugged in every single color chip for every theme and opacity level, one by one, as raw values. Modes were utilized not only for colors but also in the typography area. In particular, the font theme collection, which defines the raw materials of typefaces, is applied with two modes, baseline and wireframe. Then, the higher-level typescale collection was mapped to dynamically reference these values in an organic way. Baseline mode is what we commonly know. It outputs the typography using the commercial font, Roboto, for the final production release. On the other hand, wireframe mode outputs the typography as abstract symbols instead of the actual fonts that shape the design's impression. This allows designers and planners to bypass the visual look of the text and focus entirely on the overall screen grid, layout, and pure information hierarchy during validation. In short, it enables you to switch between a fully rendered content concept and a wireframe layout with just a single click. Now, we've just seen how Material Design 3 built its structure and expanded its modes to maintain its design philosophy within Figma's technical constraints. As the final step of our material design study, we are going to contrast the standard textbook three-layer structure with this material design structure. Let's dive in to clearly pinpoint the differences between these two architectural approaches and find out what practical pros and cons, as well as realistic trade-offs, each one brings to the table. Now, let's do a side-by-side comparison of the standard three-layer structure we established earlier as our core principle and the structure of Material Design 3. The standard structure is mapped to the UI through three distinct layers: primitive, alias, and component tokens. On the other hand, Material Design 3 boldly skipped that middle component token step. Instead, it takes a streamlined path where a wide array of system-level design tokens maps directly to the actual UI components. Though the depth of the hierarchy differs, each approach brings its own distinct pros and cons when applied in practice. The pros and cons of these two structures are clear. Because the standard three-layer structure we learned has separated layers, it offers the advantage of relatively free, fine-tuning at the component level. However, it requires a higher upfront design token architecture cost. On the other hand, since Material Design 3 omitted the component token step, it can achieve an overwhelmingly faster deployment speed in production, allowing you to quickly build components and apply tokens right away. The downside, though, is that the raw data isn't categorized into sublayers, making it difficult to trace and locate the specific values needed to isolate and customize components individually. Despite this, The reason Material Design 3 maintains such a heavy structure is clear. It's because this specific architecture can best embrace countless themes where opacity control is absolutely essential. In the dynamic color environment that Google aims for, thousands of different themes are generated for each user. The current M3 structure is practically the only way to stably accommodate and expand all of these color and transparency systems without errors, even within the tool's technical constraints. Ultimately, it can be viewed as a strategic design that focused heavily on global scalability and visual integrity, rather than the strict precision of the system itself. Ultimately, there is no absolute right answer in design systems. Google's M3 built its architecture specifically to achieve its goals of infinite theme expansion and rapid production deployment speed. What truly matters is tailoring it to your own product's scale and objective. If granular control at the component level and a strict hierarchy are your top priorities, you should opt for the standard 3-layer structure. If your goal is practical usability for instant team communication and quick component-centric deployment, Ant Design will be your best reference. Lastly, if you need multi-theme scalability that embraces countless colors combined with the overwhelming productivity of direct mapping, it's best to modify and apply Material Design's approach. Now it's time to discover and choose the perfect custom-tailored fit for your own team. With that, we have thoroughly uncovered the design token structure of Google Material Design 3. The biggest takeaway from this session is that even a seemingly perfect global platform ultimately had to fiercely compromise between the technical constraints of Figma and their own business objectives to build their design system. Again, there is no absolute right answer in design systems. Using their choices as a compass, I hope you go on to design the most suitable design token architecture for your own projects. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next session. I'm Dudu.